Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So we are in the middle of an all about series about Dante's Inferno. I've done two other series as well, one about Hamlet, one about A Tale of Two Cities. So if you're interested in those books where you're studying them, then definitely look those up on my channel. But today is about Dante's Inferno, Cantos 3 and 4, which I am going to call the descent into hell, because that is what happens in those cantos. So last time, Dante found himself in a dark forest. He hits rock bottom and, well, he thinks, right, he's about to go into the Inferno, but he hits rock bottom and he meets Virgil, the renowned poet, who is a character. Dante is also a character in this, so there's Dante the poet versus Dante the character, and Virgil the poet versus Virgil the character. There is a certain amount of fan fiction that is involved in this story. Just embrace it. Don't feel like you're above it. This is just very particularly well done. All right, so Canto 3 is really what people are waiting for when they start studying Dante's Inferno. Canto 3 starts off just immediately in the action with 3 stanzas that give you the words above the gate of hell, including what is the most famous line in all of the Inferno: "Abandon all hope, you who enter here," depending on the translation that you have. I know that my translation is not the most elegant, so I apologize for that. I'll give you canto and line number where it's relevant, but just be aware that I am aware there are other translations like Hollander that are better. Okay, so let's look at the words above the gate of hell. Actually, before we do, just a note that Dante and Virgil are walking, they're on Earth, right? They don't start in the Inferno. The dark wood is a literal and figurative one, just in the world. But then the Inferno is also part of the cosmography of the world as well. They go literally down into the Inferno from a place that is on Earth. So it gets a little bit potentially confusing because of that. The way that the Inferno works is not physically all that possible, but this does have fantasy and allegorical elements. But just know that they are physically walking from Earth to the gate of hell, and then they'll begin to descend. So here's the big gate, and because it's so important, I'm actually going to read all of the words above the gate of hell, dig into them a little bit, and then we'll see what's in there. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way to a forsaken people. I am the way into eternal sorrow. Sacred justice moved my architect. I was raised here by divine omnipotence, primordial love, and ultimate intellect. Only those elements time cannot wear were made before me, and beyond time I stand. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Whew, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to at least address it, but know that there's more that you can dig into. As I say with all of these analysis videos, make sure that you're not just, if you're writing a paper or something, not just taking my ideas. That would be plagiarism, but this is meant to educate and assist. But there's always more that you can find, and that is your responsibility if you do have an assignment like talking through these lines. So taking that first stanza, all the stanzas pretty much have 3 lines. There's a significance to the fact that there are three lines, and then the repeated threes. I believe I talked about this last week with the 3 beasts, the 3 heavenly ladies, and even the 3 sections of the afterlife, the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and Paradiso. There's this divinity, this Holy Trinity reflected in all of creation is the idea that kind of the simplified idea of what Dante was trying to get across there. Even in the Inferno, there is something that reflects an aspect of the character of God, but we'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so I am the way, I am the way, I am the way. That would have sounded familiar to the original readers of this poem, and perhaps it sounds familiar to you as well. It's from a very famous biblical passage. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. And so I am the way. So Jesus in that passage, right, is the way to heaven, to paradise, to the paradiso. This is the other way. I am the way to the city of woe, etc. So we're meant to hear that allusion to biblical passages, and that's pretty consistent throughout. There are a lot of references to biblical things. So I'll point those out if it seems relevant to do it. Okay, the second stanza, sacred justice moved my architect. I was raised here by divine omnipotence, primordial love, and ultimate intellect. So we have 4 aspects of the character of the Christian God that Dante is trying to put forward here as motivating factors for creating the Inferno. There's sacred justice. That one is the easiest to understand, I think. Even if you completely disagree with the idea of hell, especially as Dante presents it, we can all relate to wanting justice, and whether that be for marginalized groups of people or what have you. So again, we might not all look at this version of what Dante perceives as justice, but we can all appreciate that there are some things that are so dreadful that they absolutely deserve strong consequences. You know, you shouldn't immediately just jump out of jail if you, have killed a bunch of people, or, if you just get out because you're wealthy and privileged, but you've really committed some horrendous deeds. I'm sure that you can think of some recent headlines that made you upset because justice wasn't served. And so let's just be on the same page here that what Dante is trying to express is that justice, in order for justice to be done, there needed to be this intense, in his case, eternal consequence. So that is the motivating factor. But then it also says divine omnipotence, just all-powerfulness, right? Primordial love and ultimate intellect. Notice there's no hate involved here. It's just love, power, intellect, and justice. So it's this sense of being all-knowing, all-powerful, and assigning the right punishments to the unrepentant people. Now it becomes clear in the third stanza that yes, you should abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Once you enter the Inferno, that's it. There is no, moving your way up. There is no repentance. There is no earning a better spot or anything like that. However, we, the readers, are put into the shoes of Dante, the character, who does not have to abandon all hope. In fact, this is a leg of his redemptive journey. So it's only if you choose not to repent or change your ways, up until that moment of death, that this becomes a no-hope situation. So that is also part of what Dante is trying to say. And then, of course, it talks about how the Inferno is eternal. Okay, so that was a lot, and there's more to talk about regarding the words above the gate of hell. But it's interesting to chew on some of these ideas that there's, especially that there's a reflection of this sort of divine justice. We'll see Dante trying to really point that out throughout the rest of the Inferno, through the orderliness of it. It's not just demons running around and fire and screaming. There are different sections, and they're very intentionally placed where they're supposed to be. The punishments fit the crime, as we'll see with this first group. I'm saying cheerfully, although I'm talking about hell. My gosh, I have this horrible habit, just sidebar, in my class of saying, when I'm switching to the literature section of the class period, all right, let's dive in. But it just doesn't have the same ring to it when it's, the Inferno. Okay. All right. So Dante, with Virgil, his guide, passed under and through that gate, but again, Dante has that possibility of hope, which just hang on to that idea. Immediately, there is the senses are assaulted by all these things. There are sighs and cries and wails. There's the starless air. There's this darkness and this sound of pain. So immediately it becomes clear that you're entering hell, but there's also a twisting of the senses, and that's actually going to be part of a lot of the punishments here in the different levels, because there was something about the misuse of a sense, whether that be sight or hearing or what have you, in life. So it's obviously terrible. And then the first people that Dante sees are these people who are running through this black haze, as it's translated here, and they're naked. They're running after this blank banner, and they're being chased by how do they put it? Wasps and hornets that goad them more the more they flee. Okay, all right. And there's this huge group of these people. So Dante asks a good question. You know, who are these people that are running after this banner? And Virgil replies, "These are the nearly soulless." This is Canto 3, line 32. "These are the nearly soulless whose lives concluded neither blame nor praise. They are mixed here with the despicable core of angels who are neither for God nor Satan, but only for themselves. The High Creator scourged them from heaven for its perfect beauty, and hell will not receive them, since the wicked might feel some glory over them." My. So we learn here that we're actually in kind of the vestibule of hell. In order to enter hell proper, you have to pass the Acheron River, which they'll get to in a minute. But this is kind of this no man's land of hell, but not hell, where people whose lives concluded neither blame nor praise, as my person translates, reside. So the translator suggests that these should be called opportunists, but I like to describe it, at least to my students, as people who took the path of least resistance. They didn't really do anything good. They didn't really do anything bad. They really didn't stand for anything in life at all. And so here they are, because they did not, follow God. They didn't do anything that would have merited, purgatory as kind of an in-between. But they also they didn't do really anything of note. So why hell won't take them in is that, as Virgil describes, the other sinners in hell would feel proud to have at least done something. As we go through the Inferno and we meet these different groups of people, some of them we can say, oh yeah, gosh, horrible. Or, we might have other responses like, I don't know why they're here or whatever. But every once in a while you encounter a group and you think, well, that's uncomfortable. And this one, some years just rings a little bit like, oh gosh, maybe I should look at my own life. And that's so much of the point that Dante is trying to show us, that we are meant, as Dante is meant, to look at our own lives and consider how we're living. So why are these opportunists running naked after a blank banner, being goaded by wasps and hornets? It depends on the commentary that you read, but I'm not going to rely too heavily on commentaries. Instead, what I'm going to talk about is the term Contra Passo. Contra Passo is utterly crucial for understanding the Inferno. That word literally comes up in the Italian later on when we get to Circle 8. I'll point it out when we get there. But it's the idea that the punishment fits the crime. So there's this eye for an eye. Whatever you did in life, there's some kind of reflection of that in the punishment that you get here. So these people stood for nothing. They really did nothing good and nothing bad. They just again, took that path of least resistance. And so they are in hell, forced to run after this banner, like they're charging, like they're really standing for something. You think a banner, right? The flag bearer you're running after. But the banner is blank. There is nothing on this banner. There's nothing that they're standing for. And so there's this mockery of doing what they ought to have done in life, and which is to take a stand for something that mattered. The harder part to kind of figure out is the wasps and hornets. It could be the guilt that they feel now, kind of goading them on. It could be something else. But one of the nice things about the Inferno is that you can see this order. You can really follow this idea of Contra Passo, but within that there is some room for legitimate interpretation as well. So you can always let me know what you think about that. Okay, so that is I'm going to call those circles 0, the vestibule area people. This is not circle 1. Circle 1 happens later. All right, so Virgil and Dante continue on, and they reach the Acheron River, which is much like in ancient mythology, the river Styx, separating the mortal world from the afterlife. But in Dante's kind of landscape, the Styx is going to come later. So just hopefully you're not too confused by that. So the Acheron is that initial river. And Charon, this demon with glowing eyes, is the one that ferries souls across. So just a couple things about this. The end of Canto 3. First of all, there are tons of souls kind of on the shore of Acheron that look eager to go across. And Dante asks, why are they so eager to go across? That seems kind of odd. Why do they want to begin their punishment? And I want to look at Virgil's response, because Dante's setting up a lot of things that will continue to be true throughout this whole poem. He says, line 121, or thereabouts, again, depending on your translation, Virgil says, and all pass over, that is the river, eagerly, for here divine justice, there it is again, transforms and spurs them so their dread turns wish, they yearn for what they fear. At first, this seems very counterintuitive. Why would you wish for something that you dread? Why would you want something that you fear? It's that idea of justice. There's something inwardly that now compels them toward justice, even if once they get there, they complain and such. There's something appropriate about it. They want that rightness, and so we'll see that. Although the souls aren't happy, there's this sense of like, well, yeah, that you get from a lot of the souls. Certainly not all of them, but we'll get to that later. Okay, and then they cross. It's kind of weird because Dante, the poet, doesn't give us that many details about crossing the Acheron. He has Dante, the character, pass out at first. He passes out a bit in the beginning, but then he stops doing that partway through. He's just overwhelmed. And I think we can cut him some slack there. I mean, I would be overwhelmed too. Here we are going deep into the Inferno on this journey to hopefully his own redemption. Yeah, let's see. I know I skipped over a few lines, so if you have any questions about things that I skipped over, I can do my best to answer those. But just know that I know the Inferno pretty well, but I'm not an Inferno expert. I actually am going to be co-teaching this year with somebody who studied Dante extensively. He speaks Italian. I'm really excited to share some of the insights that I learned from him this year as we co-teach the Inferno. So just be looking forward to that. Okay, we're on to Canto number 4, circle number 1. We have finally arrived. And circle 1 seems like a place that would be nice to vacation. And it sounds so wrong to say. I wouldn't want to stay there. Don't take me out of context. But vacation? Sure. I mean, circle 1 is sort of nice. I mean, it says no tortured wailing rose to greet us here, so that's obviously nice. You don't want tortured wailing if you're going to visit someplace. You have some green grass. There's this big citadel. I mean, this is, if you read classic mythology or Homer, things like that, these are like the Elysian, that is the word, yeah? Elysian, I think. Elysian fields, where the heroes go in the afterlife. So one thing, Dante was trying to do a lot of things, and I'm going to try to bring them up, and you can dig more into them as time goes on. But one thing he was really trying to do, in addition to what I've talked about before, is synthesize the great works that existed and were respected at the time. So not only the Bible, but also works like Homer. How could all of these things be, in a sense, simultaneously true and still support the Christian beliefs that Dante had? So it's this pretty masterful synthesis of different characters and things like that. It's at least very creative. You have to admire the creativity to kind of zipper these things together in a way that makes us a certain amount of at least narrative sense. So here we have circle 1. It is one of the only circles that has a separate name, and that is Limbo. There are going to be 3 circles total that have special names. Otherwise, it's just circle and then the number. That is circle 1, 8, and 9 are the ones that have special names. So Limbo, and the people here are the I'll let Virgil talk about it. This is line 31. And the master said to me, "You do not question what souls these are that suffer here before you. I wish you to know before you travel on that these were sinless, and still their merits fail, for they lacked baptism's grace, which is the door of the true faith you were born to. Their birth fell before the age of the Christian mysteries, and so they did not worship God's Trinity in fullest duty. I am one of these. For such defects are we lost, though spared the fire and suffering hell in one affliction only, that without hope we live on in desire." Okay, all right. So the translator here suggests, he calls these people the virtuous pagans, and that seems like a decent way of describing this group of people who were born before Christ and who did not, look forward to the ultimately Christian Savior. They didn't really do anything wrong. In fact, they did a lot of good, but that's not enough. Okay. So within the context of the story, this makes sense. You think about Virgil, who belongs in this section. Hopefully you heard that. You think about Virgil and how he, on Dante's redemptive journey, can only take Dante through the Inferno, through purgatory, but he cannot get to paradise. That human reason, human virtue is not enough to make that final leap. There needs to be this divine love. There needs to be this leap of faith that the people in this section never took or experienced. So, narratively, this makes, again, a certain amount of sense. Now let's talk Contra Passo. Contra Passo, that is, punishment fits the crime, just like with the opportunists. Here, these people, Virgil and then many others that we'll meet in a second, live in this quite nice place. There's even light. It's not completely dark. Grass, etc., like I just said. All these famous people. But Virgil explains that the only way that they are suffering is not having hope, but they live on in desire. So the idea is that in life, they did not have that hope of heaven, and that situation did not change in death. with the exception of now knowing what they are missing. So Contra Passo again makes sense according to the rules that Dante has set up. And I always have students say, well, they could just hang out with Socrates and all these people. But if you've had even a day where you truly, truly lost hope, you know that it's not a small suffering. It's quite a significant suffering. So just these people still are going through it, just not in the same sort of tormented way that other people are in the Inferno. So, then Virgil talks about how some of the Old Testament figures were here as well, Abraham, David, etc. But then after the death of Christ, according to the traditional story, goes down into hell after he dies on the cross, and saves those people who had looked forward to the Savior coming. So they were all taken out, and everybody else was left. And that is that. Okay, I mentioned that there are lots of famous people. I'm going to assume that you have read this, and I'm just kind of recapping, doing a little bit of a deep dive for you. But tons of famous people. You have everyone from Pythagoras to Saladin, the general, to Hector. I was happy to see Hector here, and Socrates, Aristotle, just so many people that you've heard of in your, if you study Greek and Roman things. So now most noteworthy of all are the poets, because we have Dante, we have Virgil. They're both Italian epic poets, and so of course there's this moment that honestly is kind of funny. Yes, there are funny moments in the Inferno, and honestly I think this is one of them. Okay, this is line 85-ish. Note well, my master said as they came on. So this group is coming forward. The person in front has a sword in his hand, and Virgil says, okay, note well, look at those people. Note well, that soul that leads the rest with sword in hand as if he were their captain and champion. It is Homer. Oh my gosh. Singing master of the earth. Next after him is Horace the satirist, Ovid is third, and Lucan is fourth. Since all of these have part in the high name the voice proclaimed, calling me, Virgil, Prince of Poets, the honor that they do me honors them. So you have this cool kids club of Homer and Ovid and Virgil, and they all hang out together, and they all compliment each other. And then around line 103, or let's just say 100 even, you can look around there. They approach, and it says that this group of poets honored me far beyond courtesy, for they included me in their own number, making me sixth in that high company. Whew! Bold, Dante. I mean, this is peak fan fiction right here. This is as though I wrote something and I was a character in it, and I met Shakespeare, who is also a character, and Shakespeare said, "Come on, you're on our level. Let's be friends." This would be laughable if Dante weren't actually this good at what he did. It was a bold move, but I suppose it paid off. So they hang out for a little while, and then they need to continue on. They can't stay in this sort of nicer area, meet all the cool people. Zeno and Heraclitus and Seneca and all these people that they mention, especially at the end. Virgil and Dante have a job, and that is to get through the Inferno so they can go on to bigger and better things. But that is a look at Cantos 3 and 4 of the Inferno. When we get back, we will look at, of course, the next two cantos and unpack those a bit. Hopefully you're enjoying this series. Make sure to subscribe so that you can get some notifications. Like this video if you like it, and I will see you next week.